Fred, how is it going? So today we're going to talk about Halloween, which is coming up soon, and I have 10 questions for you, and you've got exactly 10 minutes to answer them, which is quite a challenge, and we're going to start now. Question number 1. What are you actually planning to do for the occasion?
Hi there. So, as you know, and as basically everybody knows, Halloween is held on October 31st every year for specific reasons, which we'll probably return to in a few minutes. But most importantly, October 31st is my birthday. So I guess I'll be celebrating my birthday by, doing a lot of studying about social interactions, sacred gatherings. Well, you get the picture.
Question number 2. Many people around the world are preparing to celebrate Halloween, and Halloween is often described as an ancestral feast, a festival of Celtic origin whose ancient name was Samhain. Is it true? What do you think about that?
First of all, Halloween is not an American festival that was invented out of nowhere in the 19th century or so. It does come from a long tradition of festivals connected to the dead and their commemoration at that approximate time of the year. For instance, I could mention a couple of Christian examples, such as All Souls Day on November 2nd, or All Saints Day, also called All Hallows Day on November 1st, following All Saints Eve on October 31st, which are all part of All Hallow Tide, which still is in the Christian tradition a time to remember the dead. And the first traceable mentions of those Christian traditions date back to the 9th or 10th or 11th century. Now, obviously, before that, many other traditions and religions did celebrate the dead. In Europe with the Romans, for example, but also in many other traditions. Now, one of those celebrations was a festival called Samhain in ancient Ireland, but also in other places where Celtic languages were spoken, including Scotland, Wales, and possibly Gaul and other places in Europe. In those places, Samhain, or its local equivalent, was a time where apparently the boundaries between the world of the living and the world of the dead were blurred. The main theory is that Irish and Scottish and other Celtic-speaking immigrants brought with them those local traditions into Northern America, and that gradually this Samhain festival evolved and became the Halloween we know today.
Question number 3. To get a better idea of what Samhain was, could you briefly describe the main features of this feast?
So, Samhain was a part of 4 ancient festivals, which divided the year in 4 seasons of 3 months each. Samhain marked the beginning of the year as well as the beginning of winter, which for the Celts corresponded to the 3 months where the days are the shortest of the year. In other words, the darkest days of the year. Of course, the ancient Celts used their own months and their own calculations based on the observation of the moon and the sun. So, to be clear, the date October 31st is just a convenient adaptation of the ancient calendar of the Celts to our modern calendar. Anyway, what was Samhain about? Well, in Irish mythology first, the date was really important, and many mythological events took place then. Some Irish gods were born or died on Samhain. A number of mythological battles were placed on Samhain, and so on. From a historic point of view, apparently, as far as we know, Samhain was perhaps a time for gatherings and settling disputes and talking about political affairs, or simply get together and eat and rejoice. Some sources mention possible sacrifices and rituals carried out by druids, especially in connection with the lighting of huge fires. But many of those sources are questionable, so the main idea was that basically people thought the gates between the world of the living and the dead, the She, opened at that time of the year, and that it was a time out of time, where gods and humans, both living and dead, could meet and interact. And more widely speaking, fire and possibly water seemed to have been a part of the rituals and stories. Also, it was a festival connected to fertility and the agricultural and astronomical cycle of the year. And that's an idea that can be found both in ancient Celtic myths and in more modern Gaelic folkloric traditions.
Question number 4. Do you know when Samhain became Halloween and who was at the origin of this name change or the creation of this new name?
Well, Samhain kept on being Samhain in the Irish-speaking parts of Ireland, although gradually, over time, as Christianity became more and more accepted in the Middle Ages and later, the name Halloween became more and more popular in the English-speaking parts of Europe. And yes, the word Halloween in itself is a Christian term. It comes from All Hallows Even, the Scottish version of All Hallows Eve, which later became Hallows Even and later Halloween. And actually, the Christian All Hallowtide and the Celtic Samhain are quite similar. They are both celebrated at the same time of the year. They are both connected to the dead. And, well, if you ask me, it is no coincidence, as both festivals probably come from a common, even more ancient ancestor. And later, those similarities were noticed and used to Christianize the Celtic festival and make it more acceptable, hence the new Christian name, Halloween. Anyway, in a nutshell, the word Halloween can be attributed to two factors: Anglicization and Christianization.
Question number 5. Halloween is believed to be a time when human beings meet many supernatural beings. Could you tell us about some of the most typical moments?
Well, not exactly. I mean, in the contemporary version of Halloween, people are not said or expected to meet supernatural beings. The new version of the festival is mainly about having fun, carving pumpkins and trick-or-treating, wearing scary or scarish costumes. Now, I assume you're talking about the older Gaelic version of Halloween, and you'd be right. In the folklore of the 18th, 19th, and even early 20th century, people were scared of October 31st and November 1st. People were especially scared of witches and fairies. And when I say fairies, I do not mean the glamorous, romanticized, Disney-esque version of fairies with, cute wings or whatever. In 19th century Ireland and before, fairies were a people with both male and female subjects, by the way. And those fairies were not nice or even beautiful. People, especially farmers, dreaded them. They could steal from you or play pranks on you, or they could kill you or abduct you into the other world, and what was called the fairy stroke, whatever that means, could render you speechless. So for that reason, many people avoided getting out of their house on Halloween, and they made offerings to the fairies, such as food or alcohol or flowers, just to please them.
Question number 6. The Irish and Scottish communities migrated to North America in the 19th century and they have kept on celebrating Halloween. Do we know how this feast has taken root in North America?
Halloween was introduced in the US and in Northern America by migrants from Scotland and Ireland mainly, especially in the 19th century, which corresponds to the largest migration period for those communities. They came into the US and brought their customs with them. The reason why the name Halloween caught on and not Samhain probably comes from the fact that those communities tried to fit in to adapt to their new environment and used English rather than Gaelic to communicate. But that's actually an oversimplification, and we should probably make an entire episode about the Celtic diaspora. Oh wait, we already did, and the episode will be released very soon. So, we're good.
Question number 7. Have there been any changes in the way Halloween is celebrated in the US?
Yes, because a new environment, a new habitat, the US in this case, implies new concerns, different goals and aspirations. Even though the fear of death is a constant and that never changes, the most famous example is probably that of pumpkins. Originally, Irish and Scottish people would carve turnips to create scary faces to scare away fairies or just frighten people. There were no pumpkins in Ireland or Scotland, so when the custom was introduced in the US, people started using local plants, in that case, pumpkins. More widely speaking, most American customs of Halloween were and still are targeted at kids. It is no longer obviously a fertility festival or a fire festival or a moment where fairies are dreaded, simply because the fear of people in 19th century America were different than the fears of starving farmers in 19th century Ireland. In the US, Halloween no longer is a sacred festival or a religious feast. It became a moment of joy and gathering and innocent fun, very much like Christmas, for example. Because yes, for many people today, celebrating Christmas is no longer about celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. For many people, it is no longer a religious festival. It is a family event. And very much the same happened with Halloween in the 19th century in the US. Celebrating Halloween was a way to get together and gently remind oneself of their own mortality while having fun with non-threatening, scary situations. It became a kids' festival, or a festival for teenagers or young adults, with no specific religious or spiritual significance. Well, neo-pagans excluded, but that's a different issue.
Question number 8. Do you think that the Halloween feast, which is celebrated all around the world today, actually comes from the American Halloween or the traditional Irish Halloween?
Well, in a nutshell, it is the American version of the Gaelic festival, which probably comes from an even older Celtic festival, which may come from an even more ancient Indo-European festival. So it's old, but at the same time it's new.
Question number 9. The development of Halloween has aroused a great deal of opposition, particularly on the part of the church, that saw it as a glorification of death and Satanism. What do you think about that? Is Halloween really about glorifying the devil?
No, of course not. Once again, today it's a kids' festival. Before that, in Ireland and Scotland, it was mainly a farmers' festival. And before that, it was a pagan festival. Now, if you believe pagans worship the devil, then you do not know what pagans are. Pagans are people who believed in gods other than the Christian God. And if you do not believe in the Christian God, that does not mean you worship the devil, right? It simply means you do not believe in the Christian God. It's like about 5 billion people on the planet right now. Today, most neo-pagans, new pagans, do not worship the devil. They worship entities which are not the Christian God. But of course, not necessarily Satan. So it's not because your kid dresses as a vampire that she or he worships Satan. Also, Halloween is definitely not about glorifying death. It's about trying to ward off the fear of death. Because, you know, death is scary for everyone. And people need ways to escape the gloomy reality of their own impending passing.
Last question. How can you explain the enduring success of such an ancient festival?
People need festivals. They need to come together and commit as members of a community and relieve the tension, whatever that tension might be. In the case of Halloween, or should I say Samhain, people originally feared the darkness of winter. They feared bad spirits, bad crops, bad luck. More widely speaking, people feared and still fear death. And today, I guess nothing screams more "I want to live" than wearing a Harley Quinn costume on a dark November night.